It started with a knock. Not the kind you expect. No police, no shouting. Just a soft knock. Polite. Almost apologetic. Maria Carter wiped flour off her hands and hurried to the door, her 9-year-old son, Jalen, peeking out from behind her apron. "Can I help you?" she asked, already sensing something was wrong. The man at the door wore a beige blazer, holding a clipboard. His eyes didn't meet hers when he spoke. "Ma'am, I'm here on behalf of the management company. I'm sorry, but you've been served. You have 7 days to vacate the premises." Her heart dropped. Maria had lived in the tiny 2-bedroom apartment in southeast Atlanta for 4 years. It wasn't much, walls chipped, plumbing fussy, neighbors always loud, but it was home. She worked double shifts at a local bakery and cleaned offices on weekends. Her son was quiet, loved sketching superheroes, and hated loud noises. Their life was humble, but it was theirs. But 2 months earlier, Maria got sick. Not a cold. Not COVID. Something deeper, a fatigue that gripped her bones, migraines that made her vomit, and dizziness that landed her in urgent care more than once. She missed work. Then lost one of her cleaning contracts. The bakery cut her hours when she couldn't show up reliably. She tried to keep up with rent. She sent $400 when she owed $725. She explained. She begged. The landlord had always been difficult, but she thought he might understand. He didn't. That night, she sat on the frayed sofa while Jalen played with a broken tablet, unaware of the crisis. Maria stared at the eviction notice again, trying to make sense of the words. Unlawful detainer. Possession of premises. Legal words that meant only one thing. You're being kicked out. No warning. No backup. No safety net. She cried in the dark, silently. Her phone buzzed with overdue bills, a friend asking for $20 she couldn't spare, and a voicemail from her mother, who had her own health issues and lived states away. Maria's life wasn't always like this. In college, she studied early childhood education. She was engaged to a man named Chris, a church musician with charm and big dreams. Jalen came unexpectedly during her final year, and Chris promised to stay. But dreams changed. He left when Jalen was 2. Now he sent birthday texts and an occasional $50 through Cash App. That was it. So Maria adapted. She worked. She hustled. She smiled even when she was breaking inside. She didn't drink, didn't party, didn't ask for much. All she wanted was a roof and a future for her son. And now, even that was disappearing. The next day, Maria made calls. First, she tried 211, Atlanta's community resource line. The hold time was 58 minutes. The woman who finally answered was kind but robotic. Shelters are currently full. Try again tomorrow morning at 8 a.m. She tried Catholic Charities, then Salvation Army, then Hope Atlanta. Everyone said the same thing, no space. Try again tomorrow. She visited a community center, where a social worker named Malik gave her a list of emergency housing options and a hot meal voucher. He looked at her file and sighed. "You're not alone," he said. "There are 1,500 evictions filed every week in this city right now." Maria stared at him. That number didn't help. She wasn't a statistic. She was a mother with nowhere to go. On day 6, she packed everything she could into 2 trash bags and 1 small suitcase. Jalen's drawings, a couple of books, her uniforms, his Spider-Man hoodie. Everything else, furniture, toys, kitchenware, they had to leave behind. She didn't tell Jalen they were homeless. She told him they were going on an adventure. They spent their first night in the back of her 2008 Toyota Camry in a Walmart parking lot. She turned the engine on and off every hour to stay warm. Jalen slept curled against her arm, his thumb in his mouth. She didn't sleep at all. The next day, Maria found an open shower program at a church. They gave her soap, fresh socks, and let Jalen use their Wi-Fi for schoolwork. A woman there named Tanya, a volunteer who'd once been homeless herself, gave her a hug that made Maria cry. "You're not weak," Tanya said. "You're surviving. That's strength." But the cracks were widening. Her car was due for a $400 repair. She hadn't eaten a full meal in 2 days. Jalen started asking why they didn't go home. He was quiet more now, less playful. And worst of all, her job at the bakery found a replacement. She was officially let go via text message. Maria sat in a McDonald's bathroom that night, staring at herself in the mirror. She looked old, tired, defeated. But when she looked down at Jalen, brushing his teeth with hotel samples, her jaw tightened. This wasn't the end. It couldn't be. Maria hadn't been inside a laundromat in weeks. Everything they wore now came from donation bins or was scrubbed with bar soap in gas station sinks. But today, they had $3 clean in change and a backpack of the dirtiest laundry she'd ever smelled. She pushed through the glass doors of Blue Star Wash, carrying a heavy plastic bag on one shoulder and Jalen's hand in the other. He wore a faded Paw Patrol hoodie and oversized sneakers they'd gotten at a clothing drive. The smell of detergent hit her like a wave, clean, crisp, familiar, and painful. For a second, she imagined they were just regular people. Normal. Doing Sunday chores. But then she saw her reflection in the vending machine window. Pale. Thin. Tired. Her coat had a rip in the side. Her son's backpack was torn at the zipper. No one was fooled. She loaded the machine with 2 quarters and one hope, that the socks wouldn't smell like mildew after. Jalen sat nearby, drawing with a broken crayon on a brown paper bag. "What chum making?" she asked, crouching beside him. "A rocket ship," he said, matter-of-factly. "With boosters." She smiled, and then her eyes watered. For no reason and every reason. That's when Amira walked in. Tall. 40s. Box braids. Long emerald scarf. She looked like the kind of woman who never missed Sunday service and always smelled like shea butter. Maria barely noticed her until she heard, "Excuse me, are you okay?" It caught her off guard. She turned, defensive by instinct. "Yeah, I'm fine." But Amira just smiled gently. "You don't have to be. I've been there." Maria didn't speak. "I had 3 babies, no man, and a house fire when I was 28. Slept in my cousin's garage for 6 months, Amira said. "Ain't nothing about survival that's pretty. But it don't make you shameful." Maria's lips trembled. She hadn't told anyone, not even her cousin in Stone Mountain, what was really happening. She didn't want pity. She didn't want charity. But something about Amira felt different. "I'm just between places," she said finally. "Trying to find somewhere for my son." Amira nodded like she heard this 10 times a day, and maybe she had. "I run a women's collective. Tiny shelter, only 6 beds, but we rotate people every 2 weeks. Not fancy, but safe. Warm. Hot food. Some folks get help with jobs too." Maria's heart skipped. "Is there space?" 2 women just left this morning. That night, Maria and Jalen had their first real beds in over a week. The shelter wasn't what she expected. It was in a converted duplex in Decatur. It had mismatched bedding and an odd smell like beans and bleach, but it was quiet. Safe. No roaches. No fear of getting towed. Jalen slept for 12 hours straight. Maria cried in the shower. The next few days were a mix of small wins and quiet humiliations. She had to tell her story to 3 different case managers. One woman wrote it all down like a DMV clerk. Eviction, yes. No support system. Got it. Son in school. But Amira was different. She checked in every morning. Sat beside her at the folding table during breakfast. Connected her to a food pantry and a school social worker for Jalen. "You have work experience?" she asked over coffee one morning. "Bakery. Cleaning. A little daycare work. You ever thought about being a home health aide? They're hiring like mad. State offers free certification. Maria blinked. You think I could do that? I know you can. By the end of the second week, Maria was on a list for the state-sponsored home care aid training program. It wasn't a job yet, but it was a path. She kept one quote taped to her bunk bed from a flyer Amira gave her. You don't have to see the whole staircase. Just take the first step. Martin Luther King Jr. But life wasn't done testing her. One rainy Wednesday, she got a call from the school. Jalen had been suspended. Fighting? She asked, shocked. He punched a boy in the face, the counselor said. Apparently, the other student called him a dirty homeless kid. Maria's heart cracked wide open. That night, she sat on the edge of his bed in the shelter dorm. He wouldn't meet her eyes. I didn't want them to know, he whispered. I know, baby. I know. She pulled him in and hugged him tightly. But we don't have to be ashamed. You hear me? This ain't forever. He nodded against her chest, but the shame was already there, rooted deep. Maria knew she had to fight harder now, not just for housing or jobs, but for dignity. She went back to the community center and volunteered 2 days a week, helping others fill out SNAP forms and housing assistance applications. She figured if she couldn't help herself right away, she'd help someone else. That's how she met Marcus, a reentry counselor who used to be incarcerated. He taught her how to set up a LinkedIn profile, how to write a basic resume, and even walked her through a mock interview. You're not just a struggling mom, he said. You're resilient. Own that. It was the first time anyone had called her resilient in years. At the end of week 3, she got an interview, real job, part-time, with a small home care agency near Hapeville. It wasn't glamorous, but it was something. She wore the only business casual outfit she had, a black skirt from the donation pile, a beige blouse she ironed at the shelter, and flats with one mismatched sole. She looked in the mirror and whispered, I am enough. She got the job. Maria stood outside the small white duplex on Maynard Street, keys in hand, heart racing. She had just finished her 3rd shift as a home health aide, helping an elderly woman named Miss Geraldine with baths, meals, and medication reminders. It wasn't glamorous work, but Miss Geraldine was kind, and more importantly, the job paid $15 an hour. It wasn't enough to change her life, but it was enough to begin one. Her schedule was tight. Morning bus rides to appointments, Jalen's school drop-off, work shifts, return to the shelter, then homework with Jalen under flickering overhead lights. Each night, Maria would check the housing list pinned to the hallway corkboard. Open apartments. Available vouchers. Case numbers. Her name wasn't on it yet, but she kept checking. The collective only allowed a 4-week stay. After that, you rotated out to the city's general shelter system or hoped for transitional housing. She was now on day 24. Time was ticking. Maria's resume had exactly one line now. Caregiver, Joyful Hands Home Care Agency. Atlanta, Georgia, June 2025. Present. Still, she updated her profile daily on Indeed, applied for apartments she couldn't afford, and saved every spare dollar in an envelope taped to the back of Jalen's notebook. She had $384 saved. Rent for most places started at $900. But Maria believed in small wins. At school, Jalen began to laugh again. His teacher, Mrs. Doyle, sent a note home that read, Jalen made 100% on his math quiz. He's opening up again. He said his mom is a hero. Maria held the paper like it was gold. But beneath it all, she was tired. Bone deep. Soul deep. She hadn't had a day off in 19 days. One night at the shelter, Amira pulled her aside. I have good news, she said, eyes glowing. One of our transitional units just opened up. It's in East Point. 2 bedrooms. Subsidized rent. Utilities covered. And because you're working, you're eligible. Maria gasped. Are you serious? Amira nodded. But you'll need $450 for the move-in fee and first month. You have. Maria blinked. I have $384. Then you need to find the rest fast. You've got 4 days. Maria went into overdrive. She picked up a second client for weekend shifts, an ex-teacher with arthritis who needed cooking help. She cut her own meals to bare minimum. She sold her earrings. She even posted a listing for part-time house cleaning on Craigslist. By day 3, she had $446. Only $4 short. But she was proud. She had never hustled this hard in her life. That night, she came back to the shelter and checked her envelope. Gone. Empty. Her heart stopped. She tore apart Jalen's bag, the coat closet, the top bunk drawer. Has anyone seen my envelope? It was taped to the notebook, she asked frantically. No one answered. A few women looked away. Maria froze. She realized someone in the shelter had stolen it. She marched to Amira, breath shaking. It's gone. All of it. The envelope. Someone took it. Amira's face dropped. She had seen this happen before. I'm so sorry, Maria. But we don't have cameras in the rooms. We can't accuse anyone. Maria stared at her, devastated. What do I do now? She didn't sleep that night. She couldn't. Her chance at real housing, gone. Her pride, burning. But Maria didn't scream. She didn't cry in front of Jalen. She hugged him tighter. The next morning, Amira handed her an envelope. Maria opened it slowly. Inside, $60 in cash. A note read, "You're stronger than your circumstances. Don't stop now." Tanya, church volunteer. Marcus, re-entry counselor. Lisa, kitchen staff. An anonymous resident. Maria covered her mouth with her hands. The people around her, many of them struggling too, had pulled together to help her rise. Her dignity returned like a flood. On day 28, Maria signed her lease. The apartment wasn't much, paint peeling, the water pressure weak, but it had a front door she could lock, a working stove, and a real bed for Jalen. She walked through the living room in slow steps, barefoot, touching the wall. She lit a candle, placed a photo of her grandmother beside it, and whispered, "We made it." Jalen danced through the hallway, yelling, "I got my own room," over and over. Maria smiled. She was still poor, still working 2 jobs, still 1 car repair or illness away from disaster. But for the first time in months, she felt something unfamiliar. Hope. But just as stability seemed within reach, reality came knocking again. 2 weeks into the new apartment, a letter arrived from the Department of Human Services. It said, "Your case for emergency rental assistance was denied due to unverified employment status at the time of submission." The rent subsidy was revoked. Her next payment would be $850, due in 10 days. Maria reread the letter 3 times. She didn't have that kind of money. She had barely caught her breath, and now she was back on the edge. That night, her phone buzzed. It was Chris, her ex. "Hey. Look, I got your message," he said. "Sorry I ain't called back sooner. I didn't know things were that bad." Maria hesitated. She'd told him nothing for years. She didn't want his pity. "I'm not asking for anything," she said. "Just, if anything ever happens to me, promise me you'll be there for Jalen." There was silence on the line. "Where you living now?" he finally asked. Maria's stomach twisted. "East Point. Just got a place. Might lose it again." "You want help or not?" he said sharply. "You always got that pride, like I ain't his dad too." That stung. But she swallowed it. Help would be appreciated. 3 days later, $200 hit her account. Then silence again. Maria stared at it for a long time. Sometimes support came from places you didn't expect. That weekend, Miss Geraldine gave Maria an envelope and said, "It's not much, but you've been a blessing to me." Inside, $100 in cash and a card that read, You are seen. You are appreciated. Maria cried in the car that night. Not from fear, but from the realization that her fight wasn't in vain. With every dollar, every shift, every person who reached out or showed kindness, she clawed closer to the life she wanted. She paid the rent, barely, and stayed housed. But life would test her one final time. Maria was folding Jalen's laundry, clean for once, warm from the dryer, when the pain hit. It was sharp, blinding, like someone stabbed a knife between her ribs. She dropped the towel, fell to her knees. The room spun. Her heart raced. Her breath came short and shallow. Jalen was in the other room, playing with a dollar store robot. He didn't see her crumple, but he heard her moan. "Mom," he called out cautiously. Then louder. "Mom." By the time he reached her, she was curled on the floor, gripping her side. "Call 911, she gasped. Tell them my chest hurts." The ER was a blur. Heart monitors. 4 drips. An oxygen mask. Jalen crying in the corner, clutching her phone like it was a lifeline. The doctor, a young woman with tired eyes, said the words slowly. "It wasn't a heart attack, but you had a hypertensive episode. Your blood pressure was dangerously high. Your body is exhausted. You need rest. Rest." Maria almost laughed. There was no such thing. Not for single moms. Not for the working poor. Not when eviction was 1 bill away. She spent the night in a hospital bed, trying not to cry. Jalen slept in a chair beside her, curled up like he had at the shelter. She realized this was the 3rd place they'd slept in under 6 months that wasn't home. The social worker came in the next morning. "You have a stable address now, right?" she asked. Maria nodded slowly. "Sort of. It's transitional housing. Rent supported. But I don't know for how long." "Okay. That matters. You might qualify for the medical hardship housing grant. It's new. Few people know about it." Maria blinked. "Is it real help, or just more paperwork?" The woman smiled. "Sometimes it's both." Maria was discharged with 2 prescriptions, a $275 ER bill, and a list of lifestyle changes she couldn't afford. No salt. No stress. No heavy lifting. More rest. Rest. She had 2 jobs and no backup. But she knew something had to change. That week, she cut one of her weekend clients, against her will. But she told them the truth. "I'm not well. I've been pushing past my limit for months. And I don't want to break in front of my son." They understood. That was the miracle. They understood. The medical hardship housing grant took weeks to process. In the meantime, Maria leaned on Amira for everything. Grocery connections, childcare volunteers, even bus fare. Amira came through. She always did. But Maria knew the weight was growing. Not just on her. On all of them. The shelter had a waiting list over 300 names long. Funding was being cut. Women were being rotated out after 3 weeks, not 4. And more were showing up every day. Amira looked tired. For the first time, Maria noticed the cracks behind her strong front. One night, while helping Amira serve dinner to a group of new residents, Maria heard shouting from the front steps. A woman named Keisha, young, holding a toddler, was banging on the door, tears streaking her face. "They said to come here. Y'all told me last week I could stay if I got a job. I got one. I start Monday. You said." Amira opened the door gently but firm. "I know what we said. But we don't have a bed tonight. I'm sorry." Keisha dropped to the concrete. "Where am I supposed to go? My baby hasn't eaten. We slept in a bus station last night. Please." Maria froze. Jalen, who was helping pass out napkins, stopped what he was doing and whispered, "That used to be us." That night, Maria didn't sleep. She stared at her ceiling and thought about every woman she'd seen walk in and out. Every mother. Every child. Every version of herself that had slipped through cracks. And something inside her shifted. What if survival wasn't enough? What if she had to fight back? The next morning, Maria marched into the shelter office with her notebook, a half-drunk coffee, and an idea. "I want to start a support group," she said. Amira blinked. "What kind of group?" "For working moms. Especially the ones about to age out of the system. Just once a week. To talk. Share resources. Help each other prep resumes. It's not much, but maybe it could stop someone from falling through." Amira stared at her a moment. Then smiled. "You've got fire, girl. Let's do it." They called it Still Standing. 6 women came to the first meeting. 12 the next week. By week 5, it had 30 members, and a wait list. Maria ran it like a coach. Each session had a theme. How to talk to landlords who don't want you. Surviving on SNAP and dignity. When you miss the rent, what now? Teaching our kids strength without shame. Women brought leads on jobs, apartments, side hustles. Some offered babysitting. Others taught budgeting. No judgment. No ego. Just women holding each other up. It was small, but it was powerful. One day, a woman in a pantsuit attended. Quiet. Watching. Afterward, she approached Maria. "I'm Camille Linton," she said. "Policy Director for the Mayor's office. I've been hearing about you." Maria blinked. "Me? Yes. This group. The stories. The impact. We need people like you at the table when we talk about housing." Maria almost laughed. "I don't have a degree." "You have something better," Camille replied. "Lived experience and vision. Would you be willing to share your story publicly? We're building a proposal for shelter reform. A real budget. You'd be speaking for a lot of people." Maria hesitated. Her instinct screamed to run. But then she remembered Jalen's drawing from a week ago, a woman in a cape, arms stretched wide. "My mom saves people," he wrote. She swallowed hard. "Yeah," she said. "I'll do it." In the weeks that followed, Maria sat on panels. Spoke at 2 city council hearings. She shared her eviction. Her shelter life. The money that vanished. The fear in Jalen's voice. The high blood pressure. The second chance. And she didn't cry once. She was powerful. Measured. Unapologetic. Her words echoed in the chamber. "We don't need more sympathy. We need policy. You can't pull yourself up by bootstraps when they stole your boots." Then something happened that no one expected. A local reporter ran a profile on the shelter. On Still Standing. On Maria. It went viral. 600,000 views. 12,000 shares. An outpouring of messages. "This was my mom. I was in that same shelter in 2019. Thank you for speaking truth." Donations came in. Small at first. Then larger. A foundation pledged $50,000 to expand the program. Suddenly, they weren't just surviving, they were building something. Maria stood one night in the shelter kitchen, watching Jalen do his homework at the same table where they once ate donated chili in silence. Only now, the silence wasn't fear. It was peace. Maria stood at the edge of the city hall steps, staring out at the crowd. Hundreds of people had gathered, shelter residents, caseworkers, teachers, nurses, young moms holding toddlers on their hips, grandmothers with protest signs that read, "Housing is a human right. Stop the rotation. Start restoration. Hashtag Still Standing." 6 months ago, Maria couldn't afford bus fare. Now, people were quoting her speeches in the local news. But this moment didn't come easy. In the weeks after her viral profile aired, everything changed, too fast. The Still Standing group was offered its own physical space inside the community center. Foundations pledged support. Local officials called her a symbol of grassroots resilience. Maria had to get a crash course in non-profit budgeting, community organizing, and public speaking, all while working part-time and parenting a 9-year-old boy still healing from trauma. She was exhausted and afraid. What if she messed this up? What if people saw through her? She didn't even own a real blazer. Amira, ever the guide, pulled her aside one night after a meeting. "Success feels scary when you've only known struggle," she said. "But don't let imposter syndrome lie to you. You're not lucky, Maria. You're ready." One day, a letter arrived in her mailbox, handwritten and folded in thirds. It was from Chris, Jalen's father. He'd seen the news, watched her speech, sent it to his mother. "I never said this before, but I should have stood by you. You didn't just raise Jalen. You fought for him. If you'll let me, I'd like to try and help now. Really help. I can take him on weekends. Give you some space. I can also help with rent if you need it." Maria reread the letter twice. Then she cried, not from grief, but from relief. Some ghosts return not to haunt, but to heal. The grant for medical hardship housing came through shortly after. She now had 18 months of rental stability guaranteed. She quit one of her jobs, slept more than 6 hours a night, enrolled in evening classes to get certified in trauma-informed advocacy. The old Maria, scraping change to feed her son in a parking lot, still lived in her memory. But this version? She was building something now, and people noticed. That's when the call came. It was from a newly formed housing task force, co-chaired by the mayor and the director of the Department of Human Services. They were creating a new advisory council made up of people with real lived experience, formerly homeless, evicted, or housing insecure. "We want you to be one of the public chairs," the woman said. "You'd be paid. Your role would involve helping shape the next shelter policy, transitional housing budgets, and equity assessments." Maria nearly dropped the phone. This was more than advocacy. This was power. A seat at the table she'd never dreamed of. But it came with a catch. She'd have to quit her job at Joyful Hands, step fully into a public life. Media, politics, panels, the pressure of speaking for others, of not failing them. What if she took the job and the system swallowed her? What if she turned into another well-meaning spokesperson who couldn't deliver? The night before her decision, she sat in Jalen's room while he slept. His superhero posters hung crooked on the wall. A tiny nightlight glowed beside him. She picked up one of his old drawings. The rocket ship. The one he'd drawn at the laundromat. She remembered the version of herself from that day. Desperate, humiliated, lost. And how far they'd come. She said yes. Maria Carter became the first lived experience policy advisor in her city's housing department. She started pushing for 3 main changes. A no-rotation shelter model, prioritizing stability over throughput. A universal rent support fund, triggered automatically when someone files for eviction. Employment integration at shelters, direct job pipelines for residents within the first 30 days. She didn't win every battle, but she changed the conversation. And sometimes, that's where revolutions begin. A year later, Still Standing became its own registered nonprofit. Maria hired other formerly homeless moms as staff. They trained volunteers, created a mentorship program, opened a second chapter across town. They helped 147 women find stable housing in 12 months. Jalen, now 10, stood on stage with her during their first fundraising gala. He wore a clip-on tie and held a microphone. "My mom is strong," he said. "But she doesn't just fight for me anymore. She fights for all the moms who are still waiting." Maria couldn't speak for a moment. But she didn't have to. The room was already on its feet. It's a quiet Saturday morning. Maria waters a tiny herb garden outside her new 2-bedroom townhouse, provided through a homeownership pilot she helped design. Jalen sits on the porch, sketching a city skyline. Mom, he asks, are we rich now? She laughs. Not exactly. Then why are you smiling so much? Maria looks around, at the sunlight, at their front door, at the ground beneath her feet. Because baby, she says, for the first time in a long time, we're home.